What's going on?
TV Crazy Man here. In this video, we look at those moments and events in TV history that took down a series, or at least led to its decline.
I know, it gets more peculiar all the time.
Along the way, I look for answers as to why most people only watch the black and white episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. Did jumping the shark actually end Happy Days? What brought down the superhero team of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman? And more classic TV memories.
Andy, this is big. This is really big.
The iconic Andy Griffith Show is a legend in reruns and ran at the top of the ratings for its entire run. But why is it that most of us have seen the black and white episodes of the first 5 seasons over and over again, but the color episodes of its last 3 seasons seem almost rare by comparison? Even though those episodes were highly rated, as the show was #1 in the ratings its final season, and yes, they do still have their fans, but something special seems to have been lost from the color episodes after the 5th season. The show's pace and overall comedy took a major hit that is felt to this day. And that one thing, I believe, was the departure of Don Knotts as Barney Fife. When Knotts left the show, it left Andy, who had transformed into a somewhat serious straight character, without his comedic clown. Andy, by the 6th season, had completely morphed from a fun-loving hillbilly into a super serious sheriff that couldn't get a laugh if his life depended on it. Andy had a great comedic background doing hillbilly comedy routines, such as What It Was Football.
And run from one end of that cow pasture to the other without either getting knocked down or stepping in something.
His album, The Wit and Wisdom of Andy Griffith, is worth a listen to. That is, if you love the fun-loving country version of Andy.
Seems to me there's something wrong with the way you put that.
Well, I have to be careful. Some people fuss at me for sounding too countrified, believe it or not. And you know, the best episodes of the color days of the Andy Griffith Show were when Barney came to visit. Now, Barney was fearful and nervous, lacking in any sort of confidence at times, while in other times he was overconfident.
Nip it! Nip it in the butt!
Unable to recognize his own shortcomings, like his terrible singing.
Maybe I can help you out. I'll sort of move around, see if I can spot who it is.
He basically was who he needed to be to get a laugh. And the funny thing is, we are all just like him in some small way. Only maybe not quite enough to get a really good laugh, but enough that we can relate to Barney as a human being.
I'm Barney Fife, Deputy Sheriff, and I'm as good a man as any.
Barney always had to do everything by the book, even to the point of absurdity, leaving Andy to have to be the voice of reason. Barney sees himself as a martial arts expert with hands of steel, which provided a little bit of comedy, of course.
Build these hands up, you see. Yeah. Really build them up till the edges are just like steel.
Like steel.
And then there was his inability to properly control his firearm. I guess they tried to replace Barney with Deputy Warren Ferguson, but he only appeared in season 6. I could also point out, though, that there were some mistakes made during the black and white episodes. I think they made a huge mistake by having Andy get increasingly serious even back then. And don't get me started on the departure of Ellie, the lady druggist, and eventual replacement by the super serious, always grumpy Helen Crump. As to why Don Knotts left the show, according to an interview, he said that he was told by Andy the show wouldn't go on more than 5 seasons. So he started looking for work and got a movie deal. Meantime, Andy decided that he would indeed do a few more seasons. The $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman ranked towards the top of my personal all-time favorite shows. They were 2 separate shows that were perfectly intertwined. The $6 Million Man was first, of course. Lee Majors brought the Bionic Man to life in the early 70s, starting with TV movies, and started its regular season run in 1974. It got better as it went, adding its iconic Bionic sounds to the mix, and gradually turning into the show we all love and remember. It really hit its stride when they introduced the Bionic Woman, played by Lindsay Wagner, in the show's 2nd season. In the very next year, 1976, the Bionic Woman would have her own TV show.
What kind of a life are we going to have with each other?
What kind of a life are we going to have without each other?
The 2 series would bring the characters together for big events like the episode arc Kill Oscar, where our hero is fought bionic robots called fembots. And then there was the return of Bigfoot. The shows shared the same characters, Dr. Rudy Wells, played by Martin E. Brooks, and Oscar Goldman, played by Richard Anderson. They had created a bionic universe, but then tragedy struck. Fred Silverman, who was head at ABC at the time, decided the Bionic Woman wasn't attracting the right demographics that he wanted. So he canceled the show. But NBC knew a good thing when they saw it, so they picked it up. But now the Bionic duo was separated. For now, the shows would be on two separate networks, NBC and ABC.
Haven't I seen you before?
Now, Silverman apparently had moved around a lot because at NBC a year or two later, he also made another goof where he moved the BJ and Bear spinoff Sheriff Lobo to the big city, which was another move for what he thought was better demographics. A move which killed that show in its second season. What Silverman, I believe, failed to calculate was the impact the team-ups also had on the $6 Million Man's ratings.
That's right.
He didn't even think about it from the perspective of a TV viewer. I mean, numbers are important, but what matters, I think, is the level of excitement you can generate for your viewers. The viewer, after all, is the customer. The idea should be, how do we serve the viewer's needs above all else? The very interesting thing was the shows still shared the same characters, but Lee Majors and Lindsay Wagner would no longer be able to do crossovers.
Like there's something there. Like I can almost remember, but not quite.
You know, I think we missed out on a lot of cool adventures that could have happened had the shows not split up. I wonder if the Bionic Woman would have still gotten the Bionic Dog. And what would a team up between the dog and Steve Austin have looked like? Looking back, I do wonder also if Lee Majors was getting bored with the show in the last season. The Bionic Woman's last season was actually better in comparison. In her last season, the Bionic Woman depressingly had to get a new love interest, since Steve Austin was no longer an option. The show's last episode aired in 1978. The $6 Million Man's last episode was in that same year.
Isn't anything ever easy?
At least there was a happy ending to the story, as the Bionic duo would years later be reunited for 3 TV movies, and even get married.
It was fantastic. I can't even tell you the feeling.
And now a little more quickly, let's run through some more bumps in the road for great series and at least one tragedy.
Hey, whoa.
Happy Days was the inspiration for the term jumping the shark, based on the Happy Days episode Hollywood Part 3 at the beginning of its 5th season, where the Fonz literally jumps a shark, but instead of meaning super coolness, it's been given to describe the moment a show loses its cool or starts to go downhill. But did Happy Days really jump the shark in its 5th season? I mean, this is the season that would later introduce the world to Mork from Ork, played by Robin Williams. I think you could probably point a little towards the beginning of the 8th season when Don Most and Ron Howard quit the show, but even so, the show ran for 11 seasons altogether. That's 6 more seasons past the point where Fonzie jumped the shark. Now, if you really want to know what I think killed Happy Days, it was
The A-Team.
That's right, it took Mr. T and the entire A-Team to beat the Fonz. They totally flattened Happy Days. They were a ratings juggernaut. But to be fair, Happy Days had already been on for a decade, so there's that. You know, they say that I Dream of Jeannie jumped the shark when Tony and Jeannie got married, and it did mark the last season. Marriage also seemed to doom other shows like Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. It also may have hurt Mork and Mindy, but you could also blame the end of that show on the weird plot line that featured an old man as their young child, played by Jonathan Winters. As funny as he was, it was pretty strange. Then again, it's kind of strange to blame marriage for the end of a show when you consider how many shows begin with the characters already married. Which reminds me of the series Bewitched, which I feel jumped the shark when Dick York was replaced by Dick Sargent. It's just kind of weird seeing Samantha married to another guy, even if he's supposed to be the same guy. Of course, it was no one's fault. York had suffered from back pain that was caused by an accident in a movie he had done previously. It's something I've covered in my video, Shocking and Controversial Classic TV Facts. You know, some people blame the demise of the Brady Bunch on Cousin Oliver, but I don't think that's really fair. I think if anything, they brought on a new character thinking it would help the ratings, which apparently it failed to do. Another season of The Adventures of Superman was planned before George Reeves died in 1959. But even before that tragedy, Perry White actor John Hamilton had passed away in October of 1958 of a heart attack at the age of 71. Of course, hopes for another season had ended with the passing of Reeves in '59. In the 80s, the Dukes of Hazzard was riding high in the ratings, but the Duke boys, Bo and Luke, played by John Schneider and Tom Wopat, went on strike over concerns about royalties with all the toy sales from the show. So they were replaced by Coy and Vance Duke, which caused the ratings to fall. Bo and Luke returned before the end of the season, giving it a boost, but the show had lost all of its steam and never fully recovered after the 5th season. So which moments and events in TV history do you see as the biggest jump the shark moments that took down a series or at least led to its decline? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit the like and check out all the other videos on the TV Crazy Man channel for classic TV memories, facts, goofs, and more. Thanks, and y'all have a great day.